Hello, everyone. We are here today with a different episode. This is unedited. This is raw. We are going to try something we've never done before because that's the time we're living in right now. Unprecedented, uncertain, crazy times. And we're here to have a conversation between a Black woman and a white woman. And we're talking it out. We're here to show you how it can be productive, but also how important it is to have hard conversations. So we want to make this just that. It's a conversation. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that all feelings and opinions are valid. We're both heard in this conversation. No opinion is more important than the other. And it's important that we have grace for how people choose to participate in conversations, in this Black Lives Matter movement, and everything that goes into what's happening right now. And remember that there's different ways to do that. You can do that financially, and you don't have to talk about it. It can be very discreet. You can physically participate in protests, as people have been doing, of all backgrounds and nationalities. And you could speak out on social media, which is one that a lot of us have been doing, especially in my generation. So just know that we understand that people participate in what's happening in different ways, and they're all valid and important, and there is no right or wrong. And I will say that I try to remember that, because before I pop off on somebody or I get annoyed or I, lash out, I try and remember that because it's important. Intentions are so important. So with that said, we are in a very dark time, Margot.
Yep.
In many different ways. We are dealing with a worldwide global pandemic.
And sometimes I forget.
What'd you say?
Sometimes I forget.
Oh, I have forgotten in these past couple of days for sure.
I'm like, oh, COVID, who? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I just got the third day of the emergency alert. Mayor Bowser has ordered a curfew for DC Wednesday, June 3rd. It's later. Yesterday it was 7 p.m. till 6 a.m. Today it's 11 p.m. till 6 a.m.
Wow. Yep, that's been happening.
Yep.
So, yeah. And then we've got protests going on. We've got this new heightened reality of the racial inequality and injustice there is happening in our world that's always been here. Let me say, there's been no plateau, there's been no end. Like this is just another wave of how important and bad things are. It's just, yeah. And then on top of that, we got an election year. Maryland and DC just had their primary yesterday, and that's its own can of beeswax, or whatever the saying is. So, there's a lot going on. That's just three things, but who knows what else is coming. 2020, we're in June, and we got a half more of a year to go. So, to be tuned in. Let's see what happens with that going forward. Also, as we get into this, there's just one quote that I really like that I feel like sums up very well what is going on right now. And a lot of people have been sharing it on social media, but I thought it was really good, by Martin Luther King Jr. And it says that there comes a time when silence is betrayal. And I think that that is really prevalent right now, because I think people are so tired of what's happening, and people are so upset and kind of at their wits' end that they're not taking silence anymore from people that choose not to act in some way. And remember, there's a difference between silence and acting discreetly, like donating, like I was saying before. So there's a difference, but I really like that because it just sums up very well that we can't do nothing anymore, like you can't just sit back and say, oh, that's unfortunate,
Gotta act.
Yeah. So, this is hard. This is hard, and we're just getting started. As we all know, the most recent act of police brutality was in the form of the death of George Floyd, who had a police officer on camera, kneeling on his neck with excessive force, constant pressure for over 8.5 minutes, through audible cries from George saying that he wants his mother, that he can't breathe. And that is obviously probably the most prevalent example of why things are the way they are right now. But at the end of the day, it's just another example in hundreds of examples. So it's hard to really think like where to start with all of this. And I don't know, but at least from my perspective, obviously as a Black woman, but also I've gotten a lot of introspection throughout this time, and I've really thought about the fact that I myself experience privilege in so many ways, and I'm sure that could be obvious to those listening. You might think, well, of course, but I really had to sit and think about that and sit with myself when thinking about everything, because I've really had to check myself and realize how complex the idea of privilege is and what that means. And I think in general, though, it makes me more compassionate to the idea of white privilege and just the idea of privilege altogether. But just, I was thinking for me, some ways that I experienced that, I've never been to public school, even though there are plenty of great public schools in this country. I've had a private school education my entire life since pre-K. I've never gone without a house, a roof over my head. I've never been hungry. I've never truly wanted for anything, ever. I have light skin, wavy hair, and I come from a upper middle class family. So there's nothing that I can say without being cognizant of that privilege. Among other things, those are just things I could kind of think of quickly. So I want that to be known. And at the same time, understand with that comes the idea of colorism that is very real and very complex as well, and something that I personally think about a lot, because as a light-skinned person, just like as a dark-skinned person would say the same thing, it's something that is in our day-to-day on top of racism. So that's something I think that people need to think about more, colorism itself. So let me stop saying so much. Of the ways that I was saying before about how you can act in what's going on right now, I really was thinking about how social media has been a really big way, at least for me. I've really liked using that platform to speak out and listening to people with very big platforms speak out. I love looking at different quotes and memes and stories that people are posting and their ideas that they're sharing. To me, social media has just been a really big part of this. I'm sure that has something to do with my age, I know, but I kind of wish in some ways that it wasn't as big of a deal to me, because I found myself more upset when there's certain people that I know, like friends, don't speak out on social media. So I'm trying to kind of deal with that right now. But in my opinion, that's the least people can do, is speak out on social media if you have it. It shows you care. Like I'm in complete agreement with people that say, like, think twice before you post, the pool you're at or the lunch you're eating. Like, think twice about what you post before you realize there are so much more important things you can be posting. So in my opinion, my friends and people in general, I think you should be holding people to account for posting. And I think it's important for friends to be willing to help their Black friends in any way possible. And if social media is part of what can help your Black friend, I think that's the least you can do, in my opinion.
I agree.
You agree? Yeah. So I kind of have a controversial question for you, Margot, because I personally, I'll just ask. I actually really want to know how you're feeling as a white person. And I just want to say that I think a lot of people don't feel that way right now. A lot of Black people don't feel that they want to hear from white people right now, but I genuinely do, just my own opinion. Because I really see how it's possible that you and people in your community feel damned if they do, damned if they don't. I totally see how you could feel like you're scared to say the wrong thing, or you're not sure what to do for fear of being criticized. I totally see how that's possible. So I just want to hear, your preliminary thoughts of how you're feeling about everything, what you think about you know, what I'm thinking about, how you're feeling, all that.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird spot because, you know, I was definitely nervous to do this because I don't want anything I say to come off as misconstrued. Um, I don't want anything to come off in the wrong way. And I also don't want to take up space of Black voices, especially right now. I mean, it should be ever, but I think if there's ever a time for a white person to sit back and be like, I'm not gonna be the leader, I'm not gonna, you know, whatever, it's now. Like, I need to let other people be heard. You know, you were talking about privilege, and it's just, I feel like if you're a white person right now and you're not checking your privilege and you're not thinking about how society has benefited you, and you haven't thought about how your life would look different if you weren't white, then you are doing a disservice to yourself and to society. But it has been tricky to try and navigate, you know, what is the right balance. For me personally, also, like, every time there is a highly talked about murder of a Black person in the media, I have always been very vocal on social media, you know, sharing and doing all that. And this time, I haven't been as vocal on social media because I didn't want to do just that. Like, I've still been sharing and stuff, but it hasn't been like like in the past where I've posted like every single thing I read and I'm like, this is so good. I haven't posted everything because I've been trying to do more than just share, because I feel like sharing just isn't enough right now. And I don't want to just share about ways you can donate. Like, yes, I do want to do that, but I want to donate, and I don't want to just talk about or share things, suggestions for white people to check their privilege and to actively combat racism. Like, I want to participate in those things. Um, I will say that my social media, just where I grew up, having grown up in DC, and I'm not saying that racism does not exist in DC, because it very much does. But a lot of my timelines have been flooded with, you know, very supportive and supportive posts for the Black community. I know people have been protesting, and I haven't seen on any of my social medias like the All Lives Matter or anything. And I think that also compelled me not to share as much, because I was like, I'm seeing people doing that work, and I was trying to think of what other work I could do. But mainly I'm hurting and I'm frustrated because this is the systemic racism in this country has always been there. It's always been an issue, and police brutality keeps happening against people of color, and it is so heartbreaking and infuriating to watch. And part of it is, I don't know entirely what to do to, like, how do we move forward in this country? How do we start actively combating the systemic racism? What can I do today in my position as a student, as a white person, as, you know, what can I do to help better this country? That was like a mini long rant, but yes, I'm nervous to talk about this, but I think it has to be talked about. I think it's important, and I want to do more.
Yeah, and I totally get why you're afraid to speak and how difficult it could be and is to speak. But I think you were very well spoken with what you said. Um, just kind of like a follow up. I wonder, have you do you have any friends in your life, or have you spoken to anyone privately, one on one, that has voiced their discomfort or refusal to say anything or refusal to be involved in any way, whether, family, friends, whatever. And yeah, how do you think you would navigate trying to help convince that person to change their opinion, or just what do you say to that kind of person?
I haven't talked to anybody, I haven't had any conversations with anyone where they were, everyone that I've spoken to has acknowledged that this was a horrific murder and that this is not the first time. And it's honestly probably not the last, which is, the most depressing and frustrating part of this. But I have, I have had one person in particular I've had conversations with who has had issues with the protests.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely been hard because when people focus more on the looting or on rioting than the peaceful protesting, which is also actively happening, it's very difficult, and they're focusing on like the wrong part of the issue. So I mean, I just try and send them links, and I try to tell them like as best I can why, things have gotten to the point they have, the history. I mean, it's so important to know Black history to also understand like why this is happening now and why we can't let this shit happen again. But it's definitely hard. It like sometimes white people just don't want to acknowledge their privilege, or they don't want to see something from another perspective because they're like, well, this is wrong. Like, I've been taught that looting is wrong. And it's like, well, maybe it's about more than that. And not maybe, it is about more than that. So, right. But it's hard. People are stubborn, and it shouldn't be hard because it's not a political thing, right? It's
a human race thing.
It's a race thing. So yeah, it's definitely hard if you come into contact or if you've been talking to somebody, a white person who can't see things in the way that would better, in a way that understands what is happening. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Of course. Yeah. And it's interesting too. I was thinking, how interesting is it that, I mean, we grow up, learning mostly white history. We include, you hear, the couple chapters on slavery and that's it or whatever.
Right.
But it's not usually until we grow up that at least Black children even, we question why that is and have a problem with that. But when we're all young, all kids of races, when we're little, we just learn it, and I feel like maybe the wokest of 15-year-olds might bring it up, but other than that, it's like, why don't we question at the time, like, can we learn more about, the African slave trade, or can we learn more about, something other than Christopher Columbus and the colonies, And so I just was thinking while you were talking, that's interesting that we don't ever really question that until we get older. And hopefully that's changing, especially as things happen in the lives of the coming generations as they're at a younger age and stuff like what's going on today happens. Maybe that will start to change. But another thing I was thinking is, I feel like, obviously this is a problem that we all need to solve together, and a problem that starts with mindsets and racism and that. But also, I feel like we don't talk about enough that like policemen themselves need more training, because at the end of the day, we can do all we want to come together and, stop the mentality around police brutality and the actions of policemen, but we can't actually stop their actions. You know what I mean? Like, it comes down to how policemen act in that moment, at least in that context of citizen and policeman. So I feel like that's something we don't talk about enough, is like training programs and what policemen can do to de-escalate and those kind of things, because at the end of the day, that's the only way that is going to stop
Yeah.
police brutality itself, the police part of police brutality. And I guess you could argue that that's like, well, little men and women that grow up to be policemen, how are they taught and raised? And
Mhm.
that comes through, coming together and ending racism or ending that mindset. So yeah, I just thought maybe if there's a way we can try and get conversations more to that aspect itself.
I have a question for you that's kind of related. Um, so obviously, sometimes in cases of police brutality against Black people, white people will try to justify it because they'll be like, oh, well, he was running away, or like with a 12-year-old Tamir Rice, oh, well, he had a gun in his hands, and even though it was a toy gun, they thought it was a gun. And in this situation, I mean, it's never an excuse, but there's nothing anybody can say because George Floyd was in handcuffs. He was on the ground. He was begging for his life and it wasn't being given to him. So I was wondering if you had any take, or like why this was kind of the one that broke the camel's back, this situation, and it wasn't one in the past. Do you think society was just like at its breaking point? Do you, because every time this happens, there's always outrage and outcry about it, but this time it's so much bigger. Does it have to do with the pandemic? Like, is it because a lot of people are unemployed right now and they have more time? They can go and protest during the day. I mean, obviously, that's not the most important part of this. It doesn't matter, why it's this time. It matters that it's this time and like that people are taking a bigger stance. But I don't know. I don't know if you had thoughts on that.
I actually heard people talking about that, and I wondered the same thing. And a lot of people, and I think I agree that the pandemic has a lot to do with it. I think people are cooped up inside and they're at their breaking point, and unemployment's high, and you know, any little thing is just sending people over the edge. Like we talked about before, it's an election year. People are so fed up with who's in the White House right now, and I think that's an added layer of anger to it. And it's just, it's like a pressure cooker, like something, a balloon getting full until it bursts. It's like each act of brutality is just another, and at some point enough is enough. And I'll give credit to our generation as well. I think our generation, everyone of all races, there's one race, the human race, shout out Jane Elliott, but our generation is, in my opinion, very woke, quote unquote, very socially aware, racially aware, and is only going to get more aware. So I think our generation is very powerful in all of this, and I think we are stepping up. The majority is stepping up to say enough is enough in this sense. So yeah, I think it's just the combination of social action from our generation, from the pandemic getting people to their wits' end, and for it being a time when we have a president that is so clearly against anything positive and good and hopeful that people are just, it's just too much. It's just too much. And things are so unhopeful right now and uncertain that it's just like, it's just, I don't know. I think people are just, they're done. It's like you can't take any more. It's too much. So yeah, I think that's why this is different. And I don't know how you feel, but I feel like this feels different.
It absolutely. I mean, normally when something like this happens, it'll be like there are protests in the city. Maybe there are protests in a couple different cities for one day, 2 days. The fact that this has been actively ongoing for like over a week,
Mm-hmm.
it does feel different. And I'm hoping that that means that something is actually going to change and reform will come, because I mean, we just can't, as a country, we literally cannot keep going on like this. Like,
Right. And for sure, I think there are some people that are outside protesting for different reasons. Like you have some people that just love the hubbub of it and like the
yeah,
excitement. So we can only hope that it goes beyond just that and beyond just protesting. And I think we'll know as well as more milestones happen. Like for instance, today, and this could change by the time this episode comes out, but today, the main officer seen on the neck of George Floyd was charged with second-degree murder.
Yeah.
And the 3 other officers involved were charged with, I'm going to say it wrong, but
Aiding
and abetting or something? Yeah. Aid and abetting in the form of second-degree murder. Aid and abetting second-degree murder. So I think a big thing with protests at the very base level is to get charges brought to the officers, because so often in these situations there are no charges brought. They're just fired or put on administrative leave or something, whatever.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens now that those charges have been brought, and what the next course of action is. So that's one way we'll see if things are different, I think.
Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit, because, you know, I'm always going back to social media. I told you how social media is a big thing for me right now. Today's Wednesday, June 3rd, and yesterday was June 2nd, and we went through Instagram hashtag Blackout Tuesday, which, of course, was filled with controversy in and of itself. But I will say, just on a baseline, this was a very powerful moment and movement. I kind of kept checking throughout the day the amount of hashtags that were posted with the black screen, the black box. And like before even like 11:30 a.m., there was like 12 million posts.
Wow.
And then I checked later in the day and it was up to 27 million. So I don't even know. Let's see what it's at right now the next day. So today, now obviously it ended yesterday, but as of right now, there is 28.7 million posts. So
And
that's
some people were posting
powerful.
even without the hashtag. I saw.
What'd you say?
On my Instagram feed, I saw some people posting the black squares, but without a hashtag. Like they would just like write something.
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay, so that's not even counting everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So very big movement, very big act. But there was some criticism because it started within the music industry, specifically Atlantic Records, called it like some sort of way for them to just kind of make a statement, and basically didn't come from the best place. I don't know all the details, but it's important to remember that Blackout Tuesday was a separate thing from what Atlantic Records was trying to do. And I saw a lot of really good explanations online about it, and one was said that the true meaning was that it's not about Black voices being silent, but it's about amplifying Black voices that black out white noise.
Right.
So I personally liked it. I thought there wasn't any problem with it. I don't know how you felt.
I didn't participate because I was seeing so many things throughout the day that were like, you should, and then you shouldn't. And I didn't know which one to do, so I didn't do it. I don't know if that's bad.
Can I just say, though, this is why it's important to have, again, the biggest thing we want to show you with this is that we're having a conversation. That's so important, because you learn people's intentions. Like I will say, I looked on some of my friends' pages to see if they posted it, and I kind of felt a certain way if they didn't.
Yeah.
But they might not have posted it for the same reason you just said, you know, because there was so much mixed messaging about, was it a good thing to do or was it a bad thing to do?
Well, the first thing I was seeing was that you shouldn't post the Black Lives Matter hashtag. It was going to bury the important information that was circulating online. So it was like, okay, that makes sense. But then I saw a lot of posts that were about how it's performative over like action. And when I read that, I got worried because, like I said, in the past, I've done a lot of social media posting and I haven't taken action. And so, I don't know, I guess at the end of the day, I decided not to do it. I saw some people did start making, instead of posting the square, they made their Instagram profile picture black, so that if they posted a story or something, then other people's would be more visible or more clickable, like Black people's stories, if they didn't make their circle black. Like, I heard that white people should do that, but
Okay.
I didn't do that either. I was kind of confused and I didn't know which way to go.
Right.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I
I took
mean,
some action, but I didn't do anything on social media. Well, I think I posted a story or two. But then I was reading that people who hadn't been posting, I had posted a couple stories before that, but then not like that many. And I have read also that people shouldn't be posting just because it was Blackout Tuesday. And then I was conflicted on that. So
it's
I
a
was
lot.
really conflicted about Blackout Tuesday.
Yeah, I think there definitely could have been more like leadership direction about it from certain, I don't know, certain like popular accounts. Maybe Instagram could have gotten behind it and made a statement like on Monday to help people
Yeah.
get ready for Tuesday or something. I don't know. But no, there was definitely some confusion, because I posted it and then also was like reading things that were saying it was bad and all the stuff, and then I had to do some research. But yeah, definitely mixed messaging. And it's interesting from what you were saying, because I've heard from some of my white friends that that word performative, and that they feel a lot of times that it's not okay to just post and then not take the action behind it, which I understand, because I'm in the same boat. I can post all I want, but if I don't act, it's like my words mean nothing. Um, but I guess I feel like, and some of my friends feel like it's just like I was saying before, it can kind of just be the bare minimum of something you can do.
Right.
And at least just, there's something to be said, especially in our generation, of posting just to show that you are aware and you are acknowledging. Acknowledgement is such a big thing, and I'll get into that a little later. But yeah, I think that's where I come from in that standpoint. I don't see a negative in posting. I can see how you might be worried about posting the wrong thing and then the backlash that comes from that. But that's how I feel.
Then I think, you know, whether it was performative or not, or whatever your opinion on it was, the fact that it did spread and the fact that there were so many people in solidarity, like, even if some people were doing it with the wrong intentions, I don't think that any bad came from it. If anything, like you said, it was a powerful moment. And I mean, my entire Instagram feed was black squares. I didn't see anything else. I didn't even see anybody being tone deaf and posting a bikini picture, okay? Like,
Success.
literally, I was surprised. I was waiting for it. So, and it is true what you said about, even though it's performative, it shows like acknowledgement, because there were some people who I haven't seen anything from, and then this one girl today posted, like, I hadn't seen her post anything yet, and then she posted something today that showed that she was very much not on the side of acknowledgement, and I was like, well, it makes sense. Like,
Right.
you weren't posting anything, and then you posted today, and I can see that you think very differently.
Because
That
there's some people that just waited. They were like, all right, I can't post on Blackout Tuesday, but come Wednesday, I'm back to my regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
think she posted something that was about like, oh, like, you can support blue lives, as in police lives, and not be racist or something like that. And then she posted like something Trump had posted, and then I was just like, okay, I can see which direction this is going in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know her, but I follow her on Instagram.
But also, like, you don't have to justify that you do know her, because that's the reality. We're living in a world around people and know people that have very different opinions and very different views of this country. I mean,
Yeah.
controversial statement, the election was rigged in 2016, but besides that, there were still plenty of people that put him in the White House, and he's one person, but the people around us had to vote for him. So we know
Yeah.
we're living in a country obviously filled with people that think very differently. So just putting that out there, no need to justify why you follow her, why you know her, because to
I
me
kind
that
of
doesn't
want to
get
say
anywhere.
it, but maybe I shouldn't no, maybe no, because I shouldn't expose anybody.
Just kidding. Um, I go back and forth on exposing people because then I wonder if the message is lost in the exposing
Okay, I
process.
won't
But if
say
if
who
your
it
heart desires, expose
so
away. You know I
I'm
love
not
some
gonna
tea.
say who it was, but I will say that for my rooming situation this year, I took a random person's lease. So it was one of my roommates, but I don't know her at all. I just followed her because the first thing that happened when I texted my roommates were she was texting me and she was like, "Follow me on Instagram."
Of course. And I mean, hey, you were sharing your personal space with a person. Like, it's only natural you follow them. And see, you don't know who's living
You
in
don't
the
even
room
know
next
who's
to you.
living. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, I was only there for 5 weeks, guys. That's a whole nother story. That has nothing to do with this.
um, and then there was another hashtag that um, I think was also started in the record company industry, music industry, about how, you know, we always say like the show must go on. That's a popular saying, but they changed it and made the hashtag called the show must be paused. And they put that on every post that was like about what's going on now. And I thought that was so good. Like, that's such a statement. The show must be paused. Like,
Yeah,
whoa. Like, hold on, everybody. Listen. Love it.
I love that. That's amazing.
I feel like this doesn't even have to be said, but we gotta just address it because people are of different intellectual levels, I should say. There is a difference between protesters and looters slash rioters. There's a difference.
Yep.
There's different intentions. There's different races. No, we said there's one race. It's the human race. There's different nationalities and cultures represented in
There
protesters and in looters slash rioters. Go ahead, Margot.
I mean there are, different races
Yes.
and there's a lot of white people showing up to these things and messing up the peacefulness.
Yep. And social media is sure to try and catch that stuff because they have plenty of footage of white people starting fires on buildings and
Tagging. I've seen a lot of white people just like out there tagging the local Starbucks. I'm like, why did you come?
or going in and stealing clothes from stores, you know, like that's not what this is about. I don't know. There's just so much anger. There's so much hurt. And it comes down to there's a point where all you can do to get people's attention is to start causing some unpleasant, scary things, unfortunately. And maybe if things weren't as bad as they were, protesting violently, or sorry, looting or rioting wouldn't be what people resort to. But at the end of the day, it gets attention above anything. But so does mass amounts of people protesting peacefully. It gets attention.
I
So
saw
yeah.
there was an amazing quote from MLK, and it was about, riots. I feel like I should pull it up because I don't want to this quote. Okay. I should have pulled this up before I started talking.
That's okay.
It was essentially saying, like, if you let things boil over for so long, then it's going to get to a breaking point, and what else are you expecting? So, like you were saying, sometimes the only way to get something done is to make a statement. And this has been boiling up for centuries. A fire is not surprising. Is that, I don't think that that's controversial to say. Like, smashing windows is not surprising. I'm mad. I want to smash windows. Like, this insanity has gone on for so long. I don't know why people are surprised. And yeah, I mean, that's all I was trying to say. That took that like 10-minute detour, and that's my bad.
That's okay. No, you're right. It's not surprising. And I think the people that worry me most are those with the mindset that like, oh, we'll be good, we'll be back to normal life like once these protests are over. This is just another like outcry. Like really? There was no normal since this country was founded.
Yep.
So it's just like, and that maybe is partially on us, but that's just how it's been. There has been no full land of the free,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So yeah, and I've also heard like it's true that the idea like if that police officer was kneeling on a dog, maybe there would be more outrage from the white community because that's how little respect people have for Black men like George Floyd.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think that that's true. Like it's such a basic thing to me. It's so basic. It's human rights. It's respect. Like it's just crazy. And we're all in this together. Like I don't know why that's so hard to understand. And that can apply not just from a racial aspect, of gun violence, of everything. So it's so frustrating because the thing that we are fighting for is so simple and should be
It's
innate.
so simple. It's basic, like you said, it's basic human rights. It's the right to run, go on a jog, and not have to worry about your life. I saw there was a tweet from a professor at some university in Texas, I forget which one. And he was a white professor, and he said, he one time paid with a bill that ended up being a counterfeit, and it's a funny story that he sometimes tells at parties now.
Wow.
And he's a white man, and for a Black man, it was a death sentence.
Yep. I've heard similar stuff like that, and I think that just gets it across so well. Like when white men tell stories like that, like I heard on a podcast, someone was saying how he was like a very heavy heroin addict and has been thrown to the ground, but arrested more times than he could count. But he's lived to tell the tale.
Yeah.
And he was a quote unquote criminal. He was a drug addict doing illegal things.
Yeah.
And has been interacted with the police more than probably a lot of Black men, and he's completely fine.
Yeah.
So, and then you have, George Floyd, who perhaps had a counterfeit $20 bill that he may not have even known was fake.
Exactly.
It's just mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing.
And I feel like it means, as a Black person in this country, like you have to overthink every decision you make because you don't know what it's right. Like he was just trying to pay. He was just trying to pay at a store, like that is such a simple thing. You try to go for a jog, you want to get some exercise in, like that is such a simple. You want to play on a playground, it's simple, it's basic, and it suddenly means death. And I can only imagine what Black parents have to teach their children growing up in this country.
Right. And I've heard too from people, it's like Black people kind of had to have a double education. You go to school and have your education, but then you have to go home and hopefully have your loving parents explain to you what you can and can't do as a Black person, as a Black man, as a Black woman. It's like that's that added layer that white children didn't go home and have to hear.
Yeah.
And that's why I just hope, I'm about to explain this a little more, but I really, really can't underscore the importance of white people educating themselves, because that I think will help people realize, if they haven't already, help white people realize how much weight their words carry and how important and valued they are in our society. because I was thinking back to Emmett Till, which is a story that you can go read about. But basically, he was a Black child that died based on the words that were a lie of two white men. Because in those days, this was a while ago, but in those days, whatever white people said was what happened.
Right.
You know, the Black person didn't get to explain what really happened or even tell their side. Like, there was no day in court. There was no, well, what he said, she said. It was whatever the white person said. So learning history like that will help, I think, white people realize, like, your words matter way more. And knowing that is what then leads me to how important it is to use your voice now in the proper way. Because that's the only way we can really make changes if everybody's in this together.
Yeah.
So I want to just explain, in my view, what are some things for anyone listening that truly doesn't know, as a white person, what they can do to help. And just another bare minimum first step is something that Margot herself did. And that is, she texted me, I'm going to read it. She texted me the other day.
Oh boy.
Let's see what she said. Out of the blue, I hadn't talked to her in a few days. Let's see. She said, and I quote, "Lyd, how are you doing? I know everything going on in the world right now is incredibly heavy, and I wanted to check in on you and your family, and I know you live in Baltimore, so make sure you're okay. Also, like, I don't know what the right way to say this is, but I feel like I need to make it a point that I hear you, I see you, I love you, I cherish your life and the life of all, and the lives of all people of color, and that I see the injustice, and I am going to do everything in my power to change the system and to get justice for the senseless murders against the Black community." She went in. But, like, I was taken aback. Like, that is, sadly, that's more than I would ever expect. Like, that should be the standard, but it's more than like, you went there and explained yourself so eloquently, but, like, most importantly, you said something, but you cared to say it to me as a person of the Black community. And that is just, like, such a, right now, that's, like, I'm lucky to have people like that in my life, you know? And that's just, like, at the bare minimum, because that means I know you as my friend, you hear me, and you're committed to helping.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is such a valuable thing. So please do that for your friends. Like, anyone listening, do that. Like, that means so much more than you could ever imagine, especially, like, out of the blue like that, you know? So I just wanted to shout that out, because you really, like, that's just so valuable and so heard, and I'm so grateful for you for doing that.
Well, I'm grateful for you
Thank you.
and your life. And I just want to say, like, quickly, like, if you feel awkward or you don't know how to start the text, like, just write. It's not gonna, I don't think it'll be received poorly. And I think it's important right now to check in on your Black friends and people you know in the Black community and see how they're doing, because it's like every day is a battle. And especially right now, it's like everything is really heavy and everything is coming to light, and it's really important to check in and tell them you love them.
Yeah. I'm not sure why this resonated with me, but I do know why. Okay, so another thing you can do, a lot of people have heard about the bystander effect. A lot of us learn this either in college or in high school or at some point in some way, like the importance of trying to intervene when you see something around you, because a lot of times you don't intervene because you're uncomfortable or you're scared to, or you just assume that another person in that moment will step in so you don't have to. And that's known as the bystander effect. But I just want to make it clear that we hear about that a lot of times in the context of seeing something related to sexual assault or something leading to sexual assault, or we see it in the form of, we talk about it in the form of bullying or like gay or racial slurs, that kind of thing. But like, it applies to this situation so much. Like, don't just be a bystander. Like, intervene if you see a Black person or a person of color being mistreated in any way, even if it's just words. If it's physical violence, obviously you don't put yourself in harm's way, but, you know, think about maybe calling the police if that's the right thing to do, or just probing into the situation a little more. But like, the bystander effect truly applies to helping in this way. It's so just be aware of your surroundings when we are allowed outside again fully, you know, pandemic pending. But yeah. And I know one thing, I'm Margot, I was curious, you know, I'm sure have you heard a lot of people asking you, like, or saying on social media, like, educate yourself as a white person?
Mm-hmm.
You need to educate, right? Like, they're saying educate yourself and don't ask your Black friends to educate you. And I've seen a lot of stuff about this that I do agree with. Like, there was something that I read that said, if you truly care, that you will take the time to learn about, you know, my culture and my history, because it's true. Like, if I could sit through a 12-year education and even a college education, structured in history class, learning about year-long history classes, learning your education, your history, learn mine. Google a couple things. Take 10 minutes. Like, I think you could muster up the courage to do that in the privacy of your own home, not forced to learn it in a classroom setting to graduate and get your degree or get your high school diploma. Like, come on.
Not forced to sit there and praise the founding fathers who had slaves.
Ooh. So I don't think that it's that hard to educate yourself. And Opal is here to educate us, apparently. She loves coming on the Zooms. But there's this actress, she's known from the show Insecure, and she's also a host on the show The Real, which actually today she announced she's leaving it. She's only been on it for like 6 months. Anyway, she's an actress. Her name's Amanda Seales, and she's very outspoken. She's been very outspoken for a long time, not just during everything going on now, but she has a really good quote that I liked about this whole educate yourself thing. And she said that I have no interest in educating white folks on my culture who have made zero effort toward protecting it. And she also said, don't call your Black friends asking them to walk you through your own awakening. I love that. And I actually think this would be good for you to read, Margot, but there's a really great site. It's from Inside the Candy Dish, and it's called, the title of the article is called Dear White People, This Is What We Want You to Do. And I think, Margot, if you're okay with it, I want you to read it in its entirety.
For sure.
Just so we can hear what you can do.
I don't want to hear, I can't believe this. I want you to read up on the history you've had the privilege to ignore. I don't want your opinions or thoughts. I want you to listen to the Black experiences you've chosen to forget. I don't want your hashtag BLM Instagram story reposts. I want screenshots of your bailout money donations and patronage of Black labor, art, knowledge. I don't want your passive Twitter likes. I want you to follow Black tragedies as much as you follow Black trends. Ooh. I don't want you to vindicate your white guilt. It's yours to reconcile. Oh, I don't want to like I said, I don't want to vindicate your white guilt. It's yours to reconcile. I had a conversation about that this morning with somebody. I want you to check your racist parents and call out your apathetic white friends, especially when there are no people of color there, without expecting a pat on the back. I don't want your tears. I have plenty of those. I want you to chicken. I want you to check in on your Black loved ones and respect our emotional and physical boundaries. I don't want to diminish the adversity you faced from aspects of your identity. I want you to acknowledge that your life is easier because you're white. I want you to admit that you would never choose to be a Black person because you know your life would be harder. I don't want you to be, quote, a good white. I want your activism to be questioned and challenged and criticized by Black people. I want you to grow from your mistakes so we can grow as a nation. I don't want your out of context MLK quotes on perpetual pacifism. I want you to see that the only difference between the Boston Tea Party protesters and the Stonewall Watts and Rodney King riots is the former were white and the latter were black. I want you to be disobedient to signal the need for change and destroy the oppressive systems that make you comfortable and powerful. I don't want you to use public demonstrations as your opportunity to role play the purge or fulfill your Joker fantasies. I want you to use your white body to shield brown demonstrators from tear gas and bullets. I don't want to see another fucking video of police officers murdering black people. I don't want peace. I want justice. I don't want you to prove that you're, quote, not racist. I want you to know that you are the byproduct of a successful racist regime that has capitalized off of black oppression and suppression for centuries. I want you to realize that being racist is more American than apple pie. I don't want you to feel at ease. I want you to take a look at yourself. I want you to shed light on the corners of your subconscious you've glossed over for years. I want you to know that you are racist because you have been trained to be so, and it's within your power to become anti-racist. I don't want my strength to be praised. I want you to respect the breadth of my emotions. I want space to break down and acknowledge my grief. I don't want to lose your attention. I want you to remember Tony McDade during Pride. I want you to remember Ahmaud Arbery during Independence Day. I want you to remember George Floyd when you vote in November. I want you to remember Amy Cooper at your Christmas dinner. I want you to remember Breonna Taylor when you hear a knock on your door. I want you to remember Trayvon Martin every time you see a bag of Skittles. I want you to know that this reconditioning is a necessary lifelong endeavor. I don't want you to be an ally for me or some other Black person in your life. I want you to be an active ally because it's the right thing to do.
Thanks for reading that. I think
You're showing me it.
Yeah, I just think that it's so well said, and I think that last part is so important and something we don't talk about because it's the right thing to do. Because we talk about a lot, like we did today on this. We talked about reaching out to your Black friends and being there for them, which is, like we said, so important. But it's like in the grand scheme of things, it's because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's not just because we're angry about it. It's because this is how it always should have been.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to go to that article and remember it, that's reminds you of how to be and what to do and how you can truly help. I mentioned before how for me acknowledgement is a big thing. I think acknowledging your white privilege is a huge, huge positive step in the right direction. We kind of cited some examples before about like a white man could get probation for something that a Black man gets jail time for. So thinking about things like that, thinking about those examples and bringing them up to people as ways to show how just injustice is. Oh wait, that's not right. What I'm trying to say is it shows how important it is to talk about how bad things are and how inequities are shown today.
And I think that's the first step.
Yes, exactly. Just the beginning. And like she said in the article, it's a lifelong endeavor. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's not something that you accomplish and then it's like, okay, we're good again.
Right.
So I just truly hope that this moment outlives its current hype and we continue down this lifelong endeavor that we're all in together. So
I think as white people, like I said, the first step is acknowledging your privilege, and the second is knowing that you can use that privilege for good and you can use it for a lot of bad. Don't be Amy Cooper. Don't threaten to call the police on a Black man because you know that it could end in death. And think about it every time you leave your house. And every time, I don't know where I was going with that, but
It's like, think about how Black people have to think every day about how to move in life and in their
yeah,
day to day. White people think about it. How do you move? How do you help?
exactly. Just think, use your brain.
Hmm.
I'd also like to acknowledge, this is way off what we've been talking about. I should have said it earlier, but I forgot. I want to acknowledge that if you want to protest and you're not out there because of COVID right now, I understand that and I see you, and that's why I'm not out there. And it's definitely difficult decision making. A lot of us are living it with our parents right now, and it is a weighing of options, and it's hard to make decisions. And just because you're not out there protesting doesn't mean you're not doing the work. But if you're not out there protesting, make sure you are doing it and you're using your time to spread awareness and to change this nation.
Yep, it goes back to your intentions and the different ways to show what you're doing. I think that was a great conversation. I think that we said a lot, and as heavy as that all is, and as unconventional as this episode is, we have had a couple bright moments happen in these past few weeks. I know I had a huge milestone of graduating, like we talked about in the last episode, which is very exciting. But I just want to take a moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much to all my friends and family, especially to those that surprised me last weekend with what I thought was just taking some pictures outside, and I hear some honking, and this line of, we counted, it was like over 20 cars in my neighborhood to surprise me with signs, music, posters, just love and screams and shouting and gifts. And it was like, I got so emotional, and I don't get emotional easily, but it was like the best thing ever, better than the conventional graduation. So thank you so much to everyone that took the time. And then they also did it was like a 35-minute video of just everyone that I know and love explaining how proud they are of me and congratulating me. And it was just more than I could have hoped for. So thank you for that. I'm speechless. It was so surprising, and it was something I'll remember forever.
That's so happy. That's
Yeah,
so awesome.
it was great.
I love that.
Excuse me, I was a little parched. Anything good happening for you, or it happened? Anything exciting?
I have been making a lot of delicious vegan food lately.
Ooh, I have been baking a little bit. I meant to tell you. I've been baking a lot of muffins from the box. Don't get too excited.
I love
But
muffins.
yeah. But vegan, you're making vegan food.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were getting last night we made some curry, some vegan curry, and tonight we're trying a recipe of like vegan pulled pork or like shredded pork, with
Mm,
barbecue sauce, shredded tofu. I'm gonna see how it goes.
right. So do you have to fry it?
No, I think it's so you literally like shred the tofu like with a cheese grater, and then
Wow.
I think you bake it and you with barbecue sauce and stuff. So,
Mm,
I mean, I feel like anything with barbecue sauce is bound to be delicious. But
yes.
food has been my joy this week.
I love it. I love it. And I love you, and thank you for
I
having this
love you.
conversation.
Thank you for letting me have it with you.
Absolutely. And this was our best attempt at an unedited raw episode. There was, of course, a little bit of editing here and there, just natural things happen, like a phone ringing. But we want to be as real as possible always. So we hope you appreciated that.